So, are you excited for today?
I am. We are going to do something that's a little different, but kind of the same of what we're doing. It's
It's
the same, but
slightly
different.
off.
It's the same, but different.
It's actually pretty shocking we haven't done this in our previous 100 or so episodes. But this one, if there were ever an interview that lines up with the Skiptown All-Stars mission, it's this one.
Yeah, agreed. So let's get right to it.
Let's get right to it. Today, we have, ladies and gentlemen, a gentleman by the name of Evan Hawk. He is going to be joining us from a website called makemymove.com. You are not going to want to miss this.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to blow up your comfort zone at the tender age of 50? Well, we did just that. When our last kid went off to college, we hit the road in search of a new hometown. Now we bounce from city to city and bring you along for the ride. This is the Skiptown All-Stars podcast.
Welcome back, All-Stars, to another edition of Skiptown All-Stars, the travel podcast you love the most, we hope. Today, Denise and I are very, very excited to welcome a guest on the show. He and his company are doing great things on the internet when it comes to helping people relocate, find new hometowns. So naturally, it was a fit to have Evan Hawk from makemymove.com here on the show today. Welcome, Evan.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Before we get too far into it, we want to remind our listeners, wherever you're finding us on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a review, a rating, a follow, a subscribe, and we are definitely going to have in the show notes after this episode all of the information where you can find Evan and makemymove.com.
Well, I'd love you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the company, what you do, what made you decide to do it, because that is like my first question for you. Like, how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, so quick intro. I'm Evan, co-founder and chief operating officer at Make My Move. And so we are an online marketplace that connects remote workers and other move-ready talent with communities that are trying to attract new residents. So how did it get started? So I and my co-founders worked at another marketplace for a long time called Angie's List, based in Indiana.
Yeah.
We were kind of winding our time down at that company. We knew we wanted to work together. We wanted to sink our teeth into a big problem. And at the time, this is about 5 years ago, in Indiana, there's a real workforce problem. The workforce was shrinking for the first time in the state's history. And so we set about tackling that. So we built some technology and some marketing capability to help identify people outside of Indiana that might be connected to the state and could be recruited back on behalf of local employers. And then the pandemic hit and all the employers stopped hiring. But at that time, we realized that the real opportunity was in the workers themselves, that, suddenly millions of remote workers are fully remote, free to choose where they live and work independent of their employer. And so we started working with individual states and municipalities to help them attract these workers as a form of economic development. So, if historically they've given companies, $10,000 or $15,000 per job to relocate, now they could give those same incentives to individual workers who bring themselves and their income and their spending power and their families along with them. And so we've been working on that use case for the last few years, and it's just been going great. I think more and more people are working remotely, and more people are thinking about uprooting and finding the place that's right for them.
What was your very first go-to city, and how did you even approach it? I mean, did you start with the Chamber of Commerce? Did you start in the mayor's office? Like, where does this idea where's the seed planted? And once it's planted with somebody, like, where does it go from there? But where do you start?
It's a great question. So in every place, there's some sponsoring agent that really kind of sticks their neck out to try something new. Now, we had the benefit when we launched of looking at the example of like a Tulsa, Oklahoma, who was the very first city that really made this a part of their talent strategy. That program was sponsored by a local not-for-profit, the George Kaiser Family Foundation. And I think really demonstrated to municipalities what was possible. So they've recruited about 3,000 households in the 5 or so years that they've been active. And they were one of the first programs that we had up on the site. When we launched, there was, I believe, 20 communities on the site. Now there's about 200. So that's certainly growing. Some of our early customers, state of Indiana was a big one. So there are 24 communities across the state who are participating in these programs. And it's great for these, particularly small and rural communities that maybe historically have been shut out of the economic development play. This is something they can do. Maybe they'll never land, Amazon relocating to their area, but they can recruit individual Amazon workers, and the net effect is the same. Those people bring economic impact to the region.
Wow, that's incredible. So can you break it down for us a little bit? Let's say I'm a remote worker and I want to leave an expensive city, say like Los Angeles, and and I've been on the road for a little while looking around, and I stumbled upon your website, as I did. I'm explaining myself here, Evan. And so tell for our listeners, tell them how the process works.
Sure. So, it's funny. I think we haven't really come to terms with just how much society has shifted post-pandemic. Yeah. I mean, if historically people really had to live, within proximity to where they work, and so that's why big city centers, have been such concentrations of population. But now that almost works in reverse. So we're finding that a lot of places like LA, like San Francisco, like New York, still great places to live, but they've become unlivable for a lot of people. Maybe they're too expensive or they're too crowded. They don't have the amenities that they're after. So people can come to makemymove.com. It's a kind of an e-commerce experience. It's a shopping experience, but for their next home base. And so there's all kinds of places, whether you want a college town or a small town, mountain town, lake town. You can shop by amenity or by location or by incentive type. Learn about the place. A lot of the content that you find on the site, it's not tourism marketing. It's what's the vibe of the place? What are the people like? What are they proud of? What are they like doing on the weekends? So you kind of get a sense of what life is like. And when you find a place that looks good, you can apply for incentives right there on the site. Usually takes 3 or 4 minutes for an application. And then our job is to essentially connect you to those local communities. So let's say you apply for the Evansville, Indiana relocation program. It's about $10,000 of incentives that are available. We'll connect you to those local program owners that will, interview you, connect you to local resources, help you find a house, and facilitate the move process.
I love how every city has different incentives. So you have to really look to see. I mean, there was one incentive that was like $15,000 for a city, and then you had another that was $7,500. Some of them are from banks. Like one incentive was they'll give you $500 for opening up a bank account, in their town. Another was a year-long membership to the local drive-through park. There was I think it was like a safari park or something. I was really impressed by what each city was offering to entice people to come and visit at least.
Yeah, we hear all the time people ask, well, why incentives? And I think they do a couple things. One, they just de-risk the move. I mean, moving across the country, this, it's expensive, it's time consuming, cost of failure is high. And so it's a great way for the communities to help, partner with these individuals and say, hey, we're in this with you. We want to make it easy and cost effective. It's also just a great way for the community to maybe communicate what is valuable to them, and how they're sort of constructing the program is a great way to communicate those values. So, you take the program in West Virginia, they're really selling the outdoor, splendor of a bunch of mountain towns. And so, they give some cash, I think it's about $10,000 of cash, but then they also give park membership, equipment rental to help you get just connected to those outdoor amenities. There are other places. We have small towns that kind of help you build a network. And most famously, there was one in Greensburg, Indiana, that one of the local sponsors set up a program they called Grandparents on Demand, where they realized that the main asset they had was this tight-knit community. And so it's one thing to say you're welcoming. It's another to be welcoming. And they actually, would stand in for grandparents at Grandparents' Day at school. They would babysit, kids
Oh, God, that's really cute.
when they arrived. And, a lot of examples of those sorts of things, college towns giving access to the university amenities and courses and things like that. But, each of these places is unique. They have their own kind of value proposition. Part of our job is to just help tell that story and help play matchmaker to folks that are looking for the same things.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, just going through the lists of some of the cities, it's great to see everything from ice cream to museums as being offered as incentives, museum access. But one of the things that really jumped out at me in several communities was that a remote worker could come, move there, get their incentive, whatever that dollar amount is. And if they actually happen to have a spouse that worked in education or healthcare or whatever, they can get even more on top of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like a really win-win for these local communities. So oftentimes the programs are designed to attract a remote worker. And the basic thesis there is that worker can bring themselves and their income. So they'll end up paying income taxes. Maybe they buy a house, maybe, and all their spending kind of trickles through the economy. But most of these places also are trying to build their local workforces too. And so whether it's teachers or nurses or, firefighters, oftentimes that trailing spouse is able to fill a job there too. So, it helps the household. Maybe they're now fully employed. It helps the community both fill jobs and fill the tax base.
Right.
Well, I was curious, has there ever been a situation where it really got so popular that they came to you and like, okay, we're going to remove ourselves from the site because there's just too many people coming.
I could see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you look around on the site, there are a handful of programs that are on what we call wait lists. And so in almost every case, we're able to fill all of the seats for these programs fairly quickly. And so there is some pent up demand. Some of these communities come up against budgetary constraints that, in any given year, maybe they can take on 20 or 30 people. They love the program, but they're just working, to fund it. And so our job is to, fill those seats and then work towards the next one. We often get asked just how big this market is. There are, tens of millions of remote workers in the US, and we think tens of thousands are, looking to move each year. Again, I'll just point to Tulsa. They move about 1,000 people each year, and they could probably move many more if they wanted to. So ton of demand. It's really a great tool for these communities that have, historically maybe had a challenge of growing.
When you first reached out so Tulsa was your first city. Now they already had incentives in place. So when you reached out, to them, that was probably an easy sell. But what was your second city? What was when you were trying to explain this, were they looking at you like, wait, what do you want to do? Or were they eager? What was the story? And again, did you go to the mayor's office? Did you go to the tourism department? What was your first step?
Yeah, I'm curious because just playing off of what Denise said, I was curious to know, sure, you got that first city and maybe the second city, when did it snowball? When did you realize we've got something great going on here?
Yeah, we're sort of optimists and could kind of see the vision early on. So I think as soon as we saw the initial, traffic coming through, we knew we were onto something, but it takes some time for, in any sort of brand new market for sort of both sides of that marketplace to sort of catch on. So on the community side, one of the very first programs that we set up was in West Lafayette, Indiana, home of Purdue University. And so, Purdue at the time, its president was Mitch Daniels, former governor of Indiana, and my co-founder was actually his campaign manager. So they've had a close relationship for a long time. And population growth in Indiana was a key tenet of both his governorship as well as how he thought about his job as president of the university. It's a land-grant university. He wanted to make sure that the mission of the university was bringing value back to the state. So, he really just kind of took the political risk of saying, hey, we're going to try this brand new thing, and helped us pilot the program in Indiana. And it's around the success of that program that we secured statewide funding for the initiative, and that has allowed all these other regions within the state to start their own programs. So, really what we try to do is just demonstrate some early results for these places and then grow, across the, expand the number of seats, expand the number of cities in a region.
It's interesting you mentioned Purdue, because we know somebody whose daughter goes to Purdue. And one of the things she said when she was doing her college tour was how involved the community was with the university, with the college. I've never heard that. Like, you go to certain college towns and it's a college town, but to hear a parent say the community is really involved, this goes back to obviously the president, his work as mayor, what he brought to the college. And then, obviously, helping launch this program. I mean, it really does show that it wasn't just lip service. They really want to build a community. I don't think that we asked you, what year did you start your company?
So the company started recruiting for Indiana in 2018, and then we launched Make My Move, the website, in 2020.
Oh, wow. So this was before the pandemic, in the January, February, or did you do it right after the pandemic? Like right after?
So the business was pre-pandemic. We launched the site in December post-pandemic.
Oh, wow.
So it was certainly a wild time, but it turned out to be good for us.
Yeah.
It seemed like the perfect time, truthfully, to launch the website. I mean, in December of 2020, I mean, everybody's
clamoring to get out of their houses and just, especially if you're locked in a big city somewhere, you're like, get me out of here.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we had almost 1 million visitors that first year and have been growing ever since.
Wow.
Your website is really nice. I love the use of it. Oh, yes. And I think the video testimonials are such a good selling point. And you said it best, and I'm obviously not quoting you per se, but it's not very salesy. It just really lays out the city. This is what we have to offer. These are our people.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I like the ease of it. It's really a clean site, not a lot of, stuff everywhere.
Your video, I'm sorry, your videos have a lot of great production value as well. So it's, it does a great job. Like the footage itself sells that town wherever you're looking at, whatever you're looking at,
The team has done a really great job. It's funny, the most common question that we get is this for real? Is this a scam? This doesn't sound like a real thing. And if you Google is Make My Move, the next thing is it real? And so really what we try to do is just tell the stories, both of the people locally that are building these programs and care about their home, and the stories of the people that have moved and, have found their new, community and set of friends and, a set of things to do. It's a rewarding work for us to kind of have a vantage to watch it all unfold.
So I'm curious, prior to launching your website in 2020, how the heck did you get the word out on these communities? So you had your business since 2018. So you have 2018, 2019, and then really 2020, because you didn't launch the website until December 2020. How did people know about this program, and how were they able to find these towns?
Yeah. So, our core competency is marketing and big data. So, I think I mentioned earlier in the discussion, worked for a long time at a company called Angie's List. And that was ultimately, we built a big brand. It was $1 billion business. And it was a very data-driven business. So we knew exactly how to find the target audience of the people that were sort of interested in that sort of premium content. And so when we started out focused on recruiting for the state of Indiana, we kind of adopted a very similar approach. So behind the scenes of the website is a really powerful data engine. And our job is to essentially find people that have connections to regions, either directly, that maybe they have family there, went to college there, used to live there, or that they have interests in the types of things that that place has to offer. So maybe they're into college sports, or they like camping, that sort of thing. And so we've built this affinity platform, again, started with the state of Indiana to find the people that might be interested in moving back to the state. And we would just do targeted marketing. We'd find these people, reach out to them to say, hey, the state wants you. We can help find you a job or facilitate your move. Are you interested? And in those first couple of years, we built a database of about 50,000 people who raised their hand and said, yeah, I'd be interested in moving back. So that same technology is what powers the Make My Move platform. We're just doing it nationwide in a much larger scale.
Oh, that's great. So I have a question. Can you, share with us any anecdotes or like success stories? I mean, obviously you guys must get some sort of feedback from the people who actually relocate and go to these new towns. What's the response?
The response on both sides of the marketplace has been overwhelming. It's really fun. On the community side, one of the favorite parts of my job is kind of watching as these communities see their place with fresh eyes. We hear, them getting excited as people start to express interest in their hometown, and that gets them even more excited to do the recruitment effort. So, you look at a place like Eastern Kentucky, Appalachian region that, historically has lost a lot of population. And they're doing this program, and they've had 1,400 people apply for their program. 7 people have moved so far, with a lot more in the pipeline. And so you hear that, and you start to see the success. And then their most recent commit, this is a great story. Their most recent commit was actually mountain climbing with one of the members of their program. That's how they heard about the program, and now they're moving. So it's becoming kind of a viral thing, all based on this sort of outdoor living, small town vibe that they're selling. So it's really fun to kind of just see those stories start to take shape.
Well, it sounds like Denise. I mean, I haven't really shared this with Denise, but I believe one of the towns is Lewistown or something like that in Eastern Kentucky. Yeah, I watched all the videos and everything, and it sounds to me like we better get our application in right quick. We're like competing with 1,399 other people at the moment, is what you're telling me. So
that's right. Yeah.
But it looks great. I mean, one of the advantages that I liked, and I did. I mean, it was like I had your website up on one side of my screen and Google Maps up on the other side of my screen. And, a place like, I believe it's Russellville, Kentucky or something like that. It's really only an hour outside of Nashville, Tennessee. So if you want to go see all the big names in country music or have that city at your fingertips for the airport or whatever, but you say to yourself, well, Nashville's exploded. I don't want to live inside Nashville. And it has, I'm just speaking for myself personally, but to know that you can go to this small community and still get that sort of experience and have access to those things when you want it and have your small town when you don't seems pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the most common preferences that we hear from our consumer audience is they want to live in a rural community, but with proximity to an international airport. So in other words, they want space, they want affordability, they want that small town vibe, but they don't want to give up all the amenities. And so we find places like, just on the donut around places like Nashville or Cincinnati or Indianapolis are all kind of performing really well.
We found such a cute little town called Opelika, and it's in Alabama, but the closest airport is Atlanta, and it's 90 minutes. And do that. I mean, like, we have a lot of friends, we have family who would come to visit. Our whole purpose is to find a new hometown, and everyone is excited for us to do that. Nobody wants to fly and then sit in a car for 90 minutes. And so I get it. Like, one of our important checks that, check box that we have to make when we travel is, how far is it from the airport? I prefer the longest drive be 45 minutes. But if I had like my wish list, it'd be 20 to 30, So, yeah, so I totally understand that.
So what else is on your all's list? What are the check boxes?
Oh, well, it has to be close also to a grocery store. Like, it doesn't have to be on top of a grocery store, but within, like, honestly, 10 minutes. I really don't want to drive further than that. Another check mark is it has to be near a big city. That is a big deal for us. Not a big city, not like a New York or an LA or Miami, but like in Nashville is perfect. A Cincinnati, like you said, is perfect. In Indianapolis, like somewhere where we can see a concert, we can go to a play. But, if we don't want to be in the mix, then we live quietly for those days that we don't want to be in the mix. We want the options. We want options.
We do want options, but I would say also, a university town sounds amazing because generally in a university town, you get, like, we're not getting any younger, Evan. So university hospitals are generally great places to get your healthcare.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously important to us. We want the ability to do the outdoorsy stuff. Our kids have always enjoyed going to the lake in Havasu, or, being in the mountains in Tahoe or whatever. We had that advantage. Obviously we had the beaches in Southern California. So to have that sort of, access to nature, but at the same time, have something to do while you're in town. So, a little bit of bustle in the town. And then obviously for the bigger adventures, the Taylor Swift concerts, the NFL games, all that other stuff. It would be nice to have a city that's somewhat proximal within an hour or two.
Yeah.
What are the hidden?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
What are the hidden gems you've found so far?
Oh, wow. Okay. So Opelika, Alabama is definitely one of them.
As Auburn's right there next to it.
Yeah.
So.
Bernie, Texas is amazing. We talk about Bernie all the time because it's a town you've never heard of. It's right outside of San Antonio. The downside.
My hometown, by the way.
Oh, San Antonio. Oh, nice.
Yeah. You know where Bernie is.
Exactly where Bernie is.
I do.
Yeah. But we always say the caveat is houses start at $1 million. I mean, it's like, it's the place you've never heard and one of the most expensive areas, that you've never heard. We do like Covington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
That's high on our list.
We actually just got back from there. We had another quick stay there. So
yeah,
it's always fun. You have all the access to everything in Cincinnati, but you don't have to live in Cincinnati. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Guilford, Connecticut
outside of New Haven was a good one. Definitely.
Yep. Where else?
There are a lot of towns in Connecticut, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hidden gems. That's a good one. I mean, I'm still a huge fan of the Knoxville and Chattanooga areas. For whatever reason, I descend from a long line of hill people, Evan. So, so the mountains are often calling my name whenever we're driving those regions. So again, that's why I specifically named towns on your website that were either in Kentucky or Tennessee. So, and that's why.
Well, keep feeding those to us. I think you'll find some of these start to pop up on the site. I love
That's good. That's good.
Okay. We're actually going to go visit because, somebody reached out to us and said we should check out, we don't know if it's going to work, but Spartanburg, South Carolina. So we're going to go there. That probably will never make your list because South Carolina is just exploding on its own. It doesn't need any help, but we are going to go check that city out just to see, like, is it something that would interest us?
Yeah.
So, that's
great. Yeah. Report back. I love to hear about it.
Well, Opelika, you should definitely look into, but that is kind of popping off. It's OPELIKA. Yeah, but that is starting to get very popular because Auburn is becoming unaffordable, and it's this cute little artist town, like literally sits on these old railroad tracks, just within like feet. It's really adorable. Houses are huge, they're affordable. yeah, definitely reach out, but I don't know. They probably have enough influx of people, but it's definitely a place to inquire with.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's this old edge. Well, now it's edgy, but it's just this old train town that has a little bit of like grit to it,
Yeah.
quirkiness. It's fun. It's cool. It's
Yeah.
like, when you go to Auburn, you get the polo shirt crowd. Opelika is not that.
No,
So,
not at
Yeah.
all.
but in a
I'm
cool.
suspicious of places that are too nice. I like a little bit of grit. That's good.
That's our we.
So Evan,
Yeah.
where do you currently live?
In Indianapolis. So we're headquartered here. Most of our folks are remote, but we kind of have a home base here in central Indiana.
Is there, since you've started this business and now you launched this website and you've made these beautiful videos, is there a place that you've considered moving to?
I think what's great is just kind of the limitless opportunity that you can kind of post up anywhere. I mean, we went to Portugal and, had an extended stay, a little less than 3 weeks, but,
Oh, it's a good one.
able to, plug in and stay connected. And, and so that was a great time. I could live there for sure. We'll often, have staycations in, the Florida Keys is a favorite spot for my family. We're beach bums, so we kind of like just finding a good spot with a book. I'm a Midwesterner at heart. Even though I was born in San Antonio, I grew up in the Midwest. Love everything about the people and kind of culture here in the middle of the country. So this is where all our family is. We'll probably always stay with a 1 foot in the door but flexible on where we are on the weekends.
That's great. So can you share with us sort of any stats or trends that you're seeing? Like, does this remote working thing show any signs of slowing up? Are people dragging their workers back to the office? Are the workers going kicking and screaming? Like, what are you seeing since you are a data-driven company?
Yeah, I think all the data that we see suggests that remote work is here to stay, and it's going to be growing, over the long haul. You hear things in the news of employers, clawing people back. It's actually become kind of a fun hobby of ours that whenever we hear one of those announcements, we'll check in a few months later and to see the follow on that, they're actually kind of walking that back. And we've seen that again and again and again. And why is that? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, remote work is great for employers. It means that their talent force is global. It means that they don't have to just find the best person within a 50-mile radius. They can find the best person anywhere. Employers report that they're able to retain their remote employees better. Those employees are happier, and it doesn't appear to impact productivity in any sort of negative way. So it's good for business. The workers love it. I think what we found in a series of surveys showed that a large percent of workers would rather leave their job than go back to the office. One said that for workers under 40, 70% would leave their job rather than go back to the office. And why is that? Well, it's given them a flexibility and affordability in their life that they didn't have before. It's extra hours in the day as if that existed. And so I think increasingly employees are viewing remote work and work flexibility as just one piece of their benefits package, and they're gravitating towards jobs that offer that. There's a few studies I'll share with you offline. We follow Adam Ozimek and Nick Bloom. Nick Bloom is out of Stanford. Have both done studies on this. It suggests that anywhere from 10 to 15% of the workforce is fully remote, and that's kind of that has settled, and is growing now. So there was a bit of a pendulum shift downward after the pandemic, but that's settling down to again tens of millions of workers.
Okay.
I kind of never understood the whole concept of making the employees go back to the office. I mean, I understand that some companies have office space, so they want it utilized. They don't want it to sit empty, but knowing the people that we know, James is obviously a remote worker. They put in way more work remote
It's
working than they do in
sad,
the
but it's
office.
true.
Because when you're in the
Yeah.
office, you're chatting with your coworkers, you're getting a coffee break. Like my friend goes into the office 2 days a week, and she said those 2 days are the most unproductive days of her week, and she dreads them because everybody's
Yeah.
catching up on what you did the week before. The first day is all like, it's not like what'd you do over the weekend, what'd you do last week? And so she said, and then I run into somebody from like, marketing, or I run into somebody from sales, and it's the same story. And it's like, I run into 4 people in 30 minutes each. That's 2 hours gone out of my day. And then I'm breaking for lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a total convert to this. Before the pandemic, I was go into the office every day. And I was sort of suspicious of a remote work when we first started.
Okay.
Because, I think for the, maybe the accepted wisdom is that so much of innovation happens at the water cooler, that sharing ideas and things like that. And my experience is the exact opposite, that, there's still a lot of easy with the technology we have today. There's a lot of easy ways to collaborate, but more often than not, to your point, it's just a way to avoid all the distraction. That a lot of the best innovation comes from a deep focus and sort of intentional collaboration. And so that's really the model we've adopted at Make My Move, and that a lot of, I think, forward-looking companies have adopted. And I'm all in on remote work now. I'm the same way. The days that I come into the office are probably my least tactically productive. They're good
Right.
socially, they're good to build culture, but when you have to roll your sleeves up and get something done, good to just focus.
Yeah. I'm just sorry. I'm just envisioning, every time one of these articles in like the Wall Street Journal comes out or something where they're like, Procter and Gamble or whoever is dragging all these people back to work. I'm just envisioning like all the people that Make My Move, or they're cutting out the article and they're putting it on the board in the locker room. And they're like, we got another one, and just using that, fodder to go out there and be even more successful at what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe you have seen our board. We have one such board.
You do. I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
And
I saw it.
We track those stories, and yeah, it's become kind of an inside joke. When's the next time Facebook going to announce that they're bringing everyone back? And,
Yeah, exactly.
It never actually happens. In part, it's expensive for them. That
Right.
it's they save a ton of money by keeping those folks where they are.
Yeah.
I do feel sorry for the young kids. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I had so much fun at work hanging out with like my coworkers. So I do feel sorry for the young kids that are stuck in their apartment. But they'll have to figure it out. Look, it's like we all figure it out when something happens. Modern times change things. We end up transitioning into something else. So I do find young people now are starting to remote work in shared workspaces. So that's so they'll go to shared workspace to be around other people, which I think is smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have an office that essentially operates like a co-working space. So there are people not even in our company that we invite in, and yeah, it's a great spot to have. You can come in, have lunch, with coworkers, have a meeting, connect. We try to be very intentional about having kind of cultural building. We'll get together everyone at least once a quarter, and just share stories and kind of build those relationships. And I agree with you. I'm trying to think of what life would be like my first job out of college if you weren't surrounded both socially as well as just career development. And so that's one thing that our leadership team really focuses on, is finding ways to sort of foster that same sense of development and cohesion, even when we're not all together at the same time. Slack is a game changer for us. We use that all the time.
I was so resistant to Slack, working in television and everything. It just seemed so much easier to get a text or an email from one of my coworkers. But, you get on a bigger show and all of a sudden you have 8 producers and 10 editors trying to talk to each other. It has been a game changer. I could not agree more. So
yeah, I mean, it's good for work communications. It's also good just for the social stuff. So, we've got a channel for like talking about music that people like, talking about their pets, or talking about things that they're doing on the weekends. And it's a way, people kind of opt into their interests and their little sub network within the company. It's great.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for you, going back to the company and the website and what you're doing. are people getting back to like, you know, the head of whatever city government area that you know, correspond with? Are they telling you that the people that are moving there, are they generally just moving there and buying homes, or any of them starting businesses? Like, are you seeing a percentage of these people actually starting businesses and bringing in, you know, products to sell to the community, or like, is that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think about 20% of our pipeline are self-employed or entrepreneurs of some type. And so we have a lot of stories of people starting either remote businesses there locally, or starting you know, brick and mortar shops.
Okay.
Oftentimes it might be that trailing spouse that, you know, comes in and starts a shop, you know, coffee shop or something like that. So we hear a lot of those stories. Really, a lot of what we work with those local municipalities is to calculate the economic impact of those moves. And so we worked with an economist out of Indiana University to build an economic model for what these people bring. And it's enormously valuable. So they essentially, to oversimplify it, but for about every $100,000 in income that we recruit, it generates $83,000 in incremental economic impact. Now that's people spending in the local economy. It might be them starting a business and in hiring staff. They buy a home, they pay taxes. And so all of those dollars kind of trickle through. And that's really what these local leaders, whether it's the mayor or the Economic Development Corporation, kind of use to justify the programs, you know, the investments that they're making, that they're, you know, it's kind of rising tide that raises all boats.
Wow.
That's incredible. So they're bringing in they're bringing in $100,000, right? This family is bringing that in. And then they're also creating another 83,000 for that area. That is so impressive. Nobody is coming in and living off of the area. They are really functioning members that are giving back. That's a really successful rate.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited about it. It gets us up in the morning. You know, and these are highly paid knowledge workers. I think the average income of folks that move through our programs is a little over $100,000. You know, they tend to be, you know, folks with college educations and, you know, working in white collar jobs. So, you know, it's a big win for a lot of these communities.
Yeah, it's a big win for the people too. I mean, 100,000
sure.
a year, somebody's giving you $10,000 to $15,000. It's like 1/10 of your income to get you started that year.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, you think about the sort of boost in disposable income you get from moving from a place like San Francisco to, you know, a place like Eastern Kentucky. I mean, it's like effectively doubling your income. And so, you know, for a lot of these folks, you know, we tend to see a couple different profiles of folks moving. One of the most common is kind of late 20s, early 30s. Maybe they're thinking about buying their first house. Maybe they're thinking of starting a family and are just priced out of wherever they are. So it's, you know, it's an income boost, but also a way for them to sort of achieve their life goals.
Hi, listeners. Thank you for stopping in on this week's episode. We're so happy you're here. I did want to mention something to you. With regards to this episode, I think it's really important for anyone who buys a new home in a new location to realize that if they're going to start an at-home business, they can keep their home address and their business address separate. How do you do that? You do that with a virtual mailbox. James and I use Anytime Mailbox for all of our mailing needs, and we love it. If you are going to start an at-home business and want to keep the business and the home separate, get a virtual mailbox. It's perfect. You can go to our website, skiptownallstars.com, and click on the link, Anytime Mailbox, to learn more about a virtual mailbox. And if you click on that link, you get a 10% discount. Anytime Mailbox is happy to offer a discount to all of our listeners that are interested in a virtual mailbox. Now, back to the show.
It sound right, boy.
I wanted to bring up, because, you know, we've talked a lot about Indiana. I mentioned Kentucky, Tennessee, but you actually have, you know, listings for hometowns in different regions of the country. You have some on the West Coast. I think it's just important to share with our listeners that, you know, just because James wants to go back to the mountains and be with his people. You're not contained to a specific area.
That's right. It's a nationwide platform right now. We're starting to expand internationally as well. There are a few Caribbean communities on the site. But our job is to help you find your place, no matter where that is. There are a lot of places throughout the Midwest and the Northeast, but I think we have 20 states covered right now, and that's growing very quickly.
Yeah.
So do you still search out these cities, or like townships now coming to you?
Both. I mean, thankfully, we have enough of a reach that people are coming to us now. It makes the job that much easier.
It really does.
But we're also on the offense. We want to go out and meet more and more of these communities, get them on the site to give our movers something to choose from.
Have you ever reached out to a town and they were like, "Nah, we're gonna pass"?
Yeah, well, it happens less and less, but early on, you hear no a lot in any sort of new venture. And I think, some of the, especially early pushback we got is that it just feels a little off. I think a lot of the folks thought, we don't want to pay people to move here. We don't want to, just the optics of that were off, or, there was sort of this pride of, we don't want to seem, desperate. But I think as more and more communities adopt this, it's become more and more normal. That this isn't a matter of desperation; it's a matter of investment. New residents are super valuable to these communities, and these people are going to move somewhere, and they're choosing where based off a variety of factors. Sometimes incentives are part of that. So, it's the communities that are really going on the offensive and, aggressively courting these people that are going to be kind of the population winners over the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. You're right. They are going to be the population winners, because the truth is when you're looking for a new place to live, and we've shared this with our audience so many times. I always laugh that James doesn't like a place if the people aren't nice to him. And I've never realized this about him. Like, I've been married to him for 25 years. I didn't know how important a hello from a stranger was to him. But when you're met with a town that wants you, oh my gosh, there is such a good feeling about investing your time and money in that area as a new place to live. I mean, we've been to places that don't want you, that they have said, don't come here, don't California-ize my area. Too many people already, go home. So to find an area that's like, no, we'll give you money. We want you here. We're investing in you. So come and, hang with us. Oh my gosh, I think that's fantastic. So for somebody to say, oh, I don't want to pay them to live here, I don't know. I think there's just another way to look at it. Like, we're investing in you. We think you're important. We love our area. We want you to see it. I think that's a great business model. I really do.
It's so well said. I mean, feeling like you belong in a place is such a powerful thing, it means more than just the words. Like, if you really feel connected to a place, you're gonna give back so much more. So actually, one of the things that we've found is that is what's driving a lot of people's moves, that they feel disconnected from their current place and they want to go someplace that they can give back. And it's led to a lot of these communities, like Bloomington, Indiana. One of the most popular incentives on the site doesn't give any cash. What they give is free co-working space and a seat on a not-for-profit board. And so they want to find people that want to give back and then actually plug them into that local community of nonprofits. And they're crushing it, so it's sort of evidence, that what's driving this is really that emotional feeling of, the desire for connection.
And I think also when you're losing that connection from the workforce, we talked about that, working at home. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do that, but it also can be very isolating. So to find your people outside of your office in your house, that is such a great way to feel at one with a group of people.
For sure. And the best part is you get to choose who those people are. It's not chosen for you by who happens to be working at your company.
Right. That's a good point. Okay. So anything else you would like our listeners to know, and where can they find you?
All right. Well, just know that, these programs are available to you. If you've ever thought about making a move, our job is to help you find your place. We'll help you find that on makemymove.com. So it's free for all consumers to use. It's totally supported by these community programs. So look around. If you're not seeing something you're looking for, let us know and we'll help you find it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that we really do need to point out that we have not said during this whole podcast is that it is a free website. There is no fee. Even if you find your forever city, town, there's still no fee. Like once you enter the website and you pick where you're interested in, it's free the entire way. Like it's pretty amazing.
That is a pretty good.
Yeah. Do you think there's a catch?
That I know you do think there's a catch. Like how much is this going
That's
to
what I
cost
said.
to get this money?
People think there's a catch. There is
Yeah.
no catch. I
I'm
promise.
gonna fill out this application. There's gonna be a $75 fee. Like there's nothing.
Yeah. Well, I guess we saved the best news for last then. We should have probably mentioned that at the top of the show, but yes, go to makemymove.com. We are so excited with what you guys are doing there. We're about to hit a road trip ourselves very soon and may actually do a visit to one of the towns on your list. So we will definitely report back.
Yeah, please do. We'd love to hear it, whether it's our programs or just places you visit. We'd love to hear boots on the ground, what life is like.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Evan. Evan Hawk, ladies and gentlemen, from makemymove.com. Lots of information. We really appreciate you contributing to the Skiptown All-Stars Travel Podcast today.
Thank you.
It's been so much fun. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Evan.
Empty nest, full tank.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.